Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open a door for someone who has nowhere else to run. Sarah Mitchell had worked the night shift at the Grand Harbor Hotel for 3 years, watching countless guests come and go through the marble lobby's revolving doors, most nights blended together in a haze of check-ins, wake-up calls, and polite smiles that masked her constant worry about her mother's mounting medical bills. But tonight felt different from the moment the woman in the expensive coat stepped through those doors. Emma Collins, according to the reservation system, though Sarah noticed how her hands trembled as she signed the register. Designer clothes couldn't hide the careful way she moved, as if every step caused pain. Heavy makeup couldn't quite cover the fading bruise along her jawline, and when her phone buzzed with an incoming call, the terror that flashed across her face made Sarah's chest tighten with recognition. She'd seen that look before. Comment below with where you're listening from. Mrs. Collins. Sarah kept her voice gentle as Emma fumbled with her credit card. The woman's hands shook so violently she could barely grip the plastic. Are you all right? Emma's eyes darted toward the lobby entrance, then back to Sarah. I'm fine. Just tired from traveling. Her voice carried the careful modulation of someone practiced at hiding pain. Before Sarah could respond, Emma's phone rang again. The ringtone was cheerful, completely at odds with the way Emma's face drained of color. She declined the call, but not before Sarah glimpsed the name on the screen. Marcus, actually, Emma whispered, leaning closer to the marble counter. Could you not put me in the system under my real name? I know it sounds strange, but Sarah had seen enough. 3 years ago, she'd helped her sister Jenny escape a similar situation, hiding her in their cramped apartment while her ex-boyfriend raged and threatened outside. She recognized the signs, the hypervigilance, the careful movements, the desperate need to disappear. Computer glitch, Sarah said smoothly, canceling the registration. Happens all the time with our system. Let me get you set up in one of our executive suites instead. Much quieter up there. Emma's relief was palpable. Thank you. I can pay extra for the privacy. No charge. Sometimes the system just assigns upgrades randomly. Sarah printed a new keycard, this one coded for room 2847 on the executive floor, a room that wouldn't appear on any standard guest manifest. I'll have housekeeping bring up some amenities. As Emma headed toward the elevators, her phone rang again. This time she answered, and Sarah caught fragments of the conversation. Yes, Marcus, I'm at my mother's. No, she doesn't have WI-V ... I told you, she lives in the middle of nowhere ... Sarah's blood ran cold. Emma was lying to her husband about her location, and doing it badly. When the elevator doors closed, Sarah immediately called housekeeping. Maria, it's Sarah downstairs. I need you to stock room 2847 with everything. Extra towels, robes, toiletries, and see if kitchen can send up a fruit basket and some sandwiches. Guests had a long journey. Of course, Mia, everything okay? Sarah thought about her sister's bruised face 3 years ago, about the night Jenny had shown up at their door with nothing but the clothes on her back and terror in her eyes. Yeah, just want to make sure she's comfortable. 20 minutes later, Sarah slipped away from the front desk during her break. She found Emma sitting on the suite's couch, staring at her phone with hollow eyes. The makeup had been washed away, revealing the full extent of her injuries, bruises in various stages of healing, a split lip that had been carefully concealed. Thank you, Emma whispered when Sarah knocked. I don't know why you're helping me, but thank you because everyone deserves to feel safe. Sarah set down the bag she'd brought from her locker. I have some things that might help. Concealer that actually covers bruises, some pain relievers, and a prepaid phone if you need it. Emma's composure finally cracked. I don't know what I'm doing. I just ran. I couldn't take another ... You don't have to explain. Just rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next step. But even as Sarah offered comfort, she wondered what they would do when morning came. Marcus Webb arrived at the Grand Harbor Hotel at exactly 9:47 a.m., and Sarah knew immediately that Emma's husband was everything she'd feared and worse. He moved through the lobby like he owned it, his expensive suit and confident stride commanding attention from every staff member in sight. But Sarah had learned to read beyond surfaces. She saw the cold calculation in his eyes, the way his charming smile never quite reached them, and most telling of all, the way other guests instinctively gave him space. Good morning, he said to Sarah, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. I'm looking for my wife, Emma Webb. She may have checked in under her maiden name Collins. Sarah kept her expression neutral. Let me check our system, sir. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up the fake searches she'd prepared. I'm sorry I don't show anyone by either name. Marcus's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. That's strange. Her phone's GPS shows she's in this area. He placed his phone on the counter, displaying a map with a pulsing red dot centered on the hotel. Perhaps you could check again. Sarah's heart hammered, but she maintained her professional demeanor. Sir, our guest privacy policy prevents me from confirming or denying the presence of any individual, even to family members. If you'd like to leave a message, I'd be happy to hold it in case someone by that name checks in. I see Marcus studied her face carefully. What's your name, dear? Sarah Mitchell. Well, Sarah, I'm very worried about my wife. She's been under a lot of stress lately. Depression, you understand. Sometimes she makes impulsive decisions that aren't in her best interest. He pulled out his wallet and extracted several $100 bills. I'd be very grateful for any help you could provide. The money sat on the marble counter between them. Sarah looked at it, thinking about her mother's medical bills, about the second job she'd been considering. Then she thought about Emma's terrified face and the careful way she moved. I wish I could help, sir, but there's really no one here by that name. Marcus's facade slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and dangerous underneath. You know, Sarah, I have friends in the hospitality industry, the kind of friends who could make life very difficult for someone who interferes in family matters. Before Sarah could respond, Mr. Peterson, the hotel manager, appeared at her shoulder. Is there a problem here? No problem at all, Marcus said, his charm returning instantly. Just a concerned husband looking for his wife. Sarah here has been very helpful. Though unfortunately my Emma doesn't seem to be registered. Peterson glanced at Sarah's computer screen. Our system is quite thorough, sir. If Ms. Mitchell says there's no one by that name, then I'm confident that's accurate. Of course, Marcus pocketed his money and pulled out a business card. I'll be in town for a few days, staying at the Meridian across the street. If Emma does happen to check in, please call me immediately. She really shouldn't be alone in her condition. As Marcus left, Peterson frowned at Sarah. Everything all right? You seem tense. Just tired. Long shift. That man seemed familiar. Marcus Webb. Where have I heard that name? Peterson's frown deepened. Be careful. Sarah, something felt off about him. Sarah watched through the glass doors as Marcus stood on the sidewalk, making phone calls. After the third call, two men in dark suits joined him. They split up, one heading around the building's perimeter while the other entered the hotel's parking garage. Her hands trembled as she texted Emma on the prepaid phone. Don't leave your room. He's here with help. The response came immediately. I'm sorry. I should go. I can't let him hurt you too. Don't you dare. We're in this together now. As Sarah typed, she noticed a new guest approaching the desk. Young, well-dressed, with tired eyes that seemed to be searching for something. He looked vaguely familiar, though she couldn't place him. Excuse me, the man said. I'm looking for information about someone who might be staying here. It's urgent. Sarah's blood chilled. Another one of Marcus's people. I'm sorry, sir, but our guest privacy policy... please. His voice cracked slightly. Her name is Emma Chen. She's my sister, and I think she might be in trouble. David Chen remembered the exact moment everything changed between him and his sister Emma. He was 17. She was 15, and they were living in their grandmother's tiny apartment above the corner market. After their parents died in the car accident, the scholarship letter from Northwestern had arrived on a Tuesday, full ride, pre-business program, everything he'd worked 3 jobs to achieve. Emma had been doing homework at the kitchen table when he'd shown her the letter, expecting her to share his excitement. Instead, her face had crumpled. You're leaving me, Em. This is our chance. I'll get a degree, a good job, and then I can take care of us properly. No more living off grandma's social security. No more worrying about money. I need you now. David, not in 4 years. He'd knelt beside her chair, taking her small hands in his. I know it's scary, but Grandma will take care of you, and I'll visit every chance I get. This is temporary sacrifice for long-term gain. You sound like a business textbook already. The hurt in her voice had cut deep, but he'd pushed forward anyway. At 17, he'd believed that success was the answer to everything, that money could solve any problem. He'd kissed her forehead and promised everything would be better when he graduated. That was the last real conversation they'd had. College had consumed him. Between classes, internships, and part-time work, his visits home became less frequent. Emma's calls went from daily to weekly to monthly, and when he did talk to her, she seemed to grow more distant each time. She started dating older boys, skipping school, staying out all night. When he'd tried to intervene during spring break of his sophomore year, she'd screamed at him, "You don't get to care now. You chose your precious future over your family. Emma, I'm doing this for us." "No, you're doing this for you. I was never part of your plan." By his junior year, Grandma had died and Emma had moved in with some boyfriend David had never met. She'd been 18, legally an adult, and when he'd tried to visit, she'd refused to see him. The boyfriend had answered the door. A man in his 30s with cold eyes and an expensive watch. "Emma doesn't want to see you," the man had said. "She's got family now, real family that doesn't abandon her." That was Marcus Webb. Though David didn't learn his name until years later, when he'd hired private investigators to find his sister. By then, she'd been married to Marcus for 2 years and had seemingly vanished. From public records, every investigator told him the same thing. Emma Webb was living a quiet life as the wife of a successful attorney. No social media presence, no employment records, no trail at all. It was as if she'd willingly erased herself from the world. David had built his hotel empire partly out of guilt, creating spaces where families could reunite, where people could feel safe and welcomed. He'd donated millions to family services organizations, established scholarship programs for disadvantaged youth, all while trying to fill the hole where his sister used to be. Every birthday, every Christmas, every major milestone in his life, he'd wondered what Emma was doing. Was she happy? Did she ever think about him? Had she forgiven him for choosing his ambitions over being there when she'd needed him most? Now, standing in the lobby of his own hotel, asking a desk clerk if his sister was a guest, David felt the weight of every year they'd lost. The investigator's report that had brought him here was thin. Unusual security activity at the Grand Harbor, footage of a woman who might be Emma, requests for privacy that didn't match normal guest patterns. It could be nothing. It could be another dead end in his decade-long search. But the way the young receptionist's eyes had widened when he'd mentioned Emma's name, the slight tremor in her voice when she'd repeated their privacy policy, told him this time might be different. "Please," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know she might not want to see me. I know I failed her when we were kids. But if she's here, if she's in some kind of trouble, I need to help her. I should have been helping her all along." The receptionist, Sarah according to her name tag, studied his face intently. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy some internal test. "What did you say your name was?" David Chen." Something shifted in Sarah's expression. Hope, maybe, or recognition. "Wait here," she said quietly. "I need to make a phone call." Sarah's hands shook as she dialed the prepaid phone number. Emma answered on the first ring. "Sarah, is everything okay? I saw more men in the parking lot." "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. What's your maiden name?" Silence stretched across the connection. Finally, Emma's voice came back, barely a whisper. "Chen, why?" Sarah looked across the lobby where David stood by the windows, staring out at the street with the defeated posture of someone who'd been searching too long. "There's a man here. He says his name is David Chen. He's looking for his sister." The phone clattered as Emma dropped it. Sarah could hear her crying, ragged sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken. "Emma, are you there? He's here. David's actually here. He seems genuinely worried about you. But I need to know, is it safe? Can I trust him?" Emma's voice fractured. "I haven't seen him in 12 years. I don't know who he is now. But Sarah, if there's even a chance, do you want to see him?" Another long silence. Then, so quietly Sarah had to strain to hear, "I've wanted to see him every day for 12 years. I just didn't think he'd want to see me." Sarah closed her eyes, thinking about her own family, about the sister she'd helped escape abuse, about the way love could survive even when everything else fell apart. "I'm going to bring him up, but slowly. Okay, we don't know how much Marcus knows about your family, Sarah. Thank you for everything. I know I'm asking you to risk your job, maybe more. Some things are worth the risk." Sarah walked back to David, studying his face more carefully now. There were similarities to Emma, she realized. The same dark eyes, the same stubborn set to the jaw. But where Emma carried herself like someone expecting a blow, David had the confident bearing of success. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to need you to answer some questions first. Anything. When's the last time you spoke to your sister?" David's face tightened with pain. 12 years ago. She was 18, and I was an idiot 20-year-old who thought I knew everything. We had a fight, and she told me she never wanted to see me again. "Why are you looking for her now?" "Because I never stopped looking. Because not a day goes by that I don't regret choosing my career over being there for her. Because she's the only family I have left, and I should have fought harder to keep us together." His voice broke slightly. "Is she in trouble? Please, just tell me if she's okay." Sarah saw the genuine anguish in his eyes, the way his hands clenched at his sides. This wasn't the controlled menace Marcus had displayed. This was a man carrying years of guilt and love. "She's safe for now, but there are people looking for her, dangerous people. If I take you to her, I need your word that you won't do anything to put her at risk. You have it. Whatever she needs, whatever I can do. One more thing. Emma's been through something terrible. She's not the same person you remember. She's going to need patience and understanding." David nodded, though Sarah could see the questions burning in his eyes. She led him to the service elevator, using her keycard to access the executive floors. As they rose, she watched David's reflection in the polished steel doors. His hands were trembling. "She married a man named Marcus Webb," Sarah said quietly. "I think he's been hurting her. She ran, and he's been tracking her. He was here this morning with men who looked like hired security." David's reflection went rigid. "Marcus Webb, the attorney. You know him." "I know of him. Corporate law, political connections, reputation for playing dirty." David's voice had gone cold. "If he's been hurting Emma, double quotes right now, we focus on keeping her safe. Everything else comes after." They stopped at the 28th floor. Sarah knocked softly on the suite door. "Emma, it's Sarah. I have someone with me." The door opened slowly. Emma stood in the doorway, and Sarah watched 12 years of separation, guilt, and love collide in a single moment. Brother and sister stared at each other across the threshold, both afraid to move, both afraid the other might disappear. Finally, Emma whispered, "Hi, David." And David Chen, successful businessman and hotel magnate, crumpled against the doorframe and wept. David hadn't realized how much he'd grown until he tried to hold his little sister. Emma felt impossibly small in his arms, fragile in a way that had nothing to do with her physical size and everything to do with the careful way she held herself, as if she expected to break. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I should have tried harder. I should have found you sooner." "You're here now," Emma said, and he could feel her tears soaking through his shirt. "That's what matters." Sarah cleared her throat gently. "We should move this inside." Marcus had people watching the building. The suite was one of David's own design, created to feel like a luxury home rather than a hotel room. But seeing Emma curled into the corner of the sofa, making herself as small as possible, he realized how much space meant nothing when you didn't feel safe anywhere. "Tell me what happened," David said, settling carefully into the chair across from her. "All of it." Emma glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "I don't know where to start." "Start with Marcus. How did you meet him?" "After Grandma died." Emma's voice was barely audible. "I was 18, working at a diner, living in this terrible apartment. He came in one day, so confident and successful. He said I was too smart to be wasting my life serving coffee." David's hands clenched. He'd been in his senior year then, focused on landing his first job at an investment firm. While he'd been networking at career fairs, Emma had been vulnerable and alone. He was charming at first, took me to nice restaurants, bought me beautiful clothes, said he wanted to take care of me, that I deserved better than struggling paycheck to paycheck. Emma's laugh was bitter. "I thought I'd found my Prince Charming." "When did it change?" "Gradually. So slowly I didn't notice at first. He didn't like my friends, said they were holding me back. He thought I should quit my job since he could support me. Then he said the apartment wasn't safe. I should move in with him." Emma rubbed her arms as if she were cold. Each time, it seemed reasonable. He was protecting me, providing for me. Sarah moved to sit beside Emma on the sofa. "Isolation is always the first step. The first time he hit me was 2 years after we married. I'd been talking to a woman at the grocery store, just friendly conversation. He said I was flirting, embarrassing him. Afterward, he cried and apologized, said he'd been stressed at work." Emma touched her cheek unconsciously. "He brought me flowers and promised it would never happen again." David felt sick. "But it did. It always does. And each time, he got better at making it seem like my fault. I talked too much, or I didn't talk enough. I was too friendly with strangers, or I was being rude. I burned dinner, or I spent too much money. Or I made him look bad in front of his colleagues." Emma's voice grew steadier, as if saying it out loud was helping her process it. "The worst part wasn't the hitting. It was the way he made me believe I deserved it." "You didn't," David said fiercely. "Emma, none of that was your fault. I know that now. But for years, I believed him. He convinced me that no one else would ever want me, that I was lucky he put up with my flaws. He said you'd already abandoned me once, that you wouldn't want to hear from your failure of a sister." The words hit David like physical blows. He knew about me. I told him everything when we first met, about losing our parents, about you leaving for college, about how alone I felt. He used it all against me later. David stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "I should have fought harder to stay in touch. I should have known something was wrong." "How could you know?" "I got very good at pretending everything was perfect." Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked it and frowned. "There are more of Marcus's people in the lobby, and hotel management is asking questions about the executive floor security." David turned back to his sister. "Emma, I need to ask you something important. Do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then let me protect you. I have resources Marcus doesn't know about. Ways to keep you safe while we figure out a permanent solution." Emma looked between David and Sarah. "What kind of resources?" For the first time since entering the suite, David smiled. "The kind that come with owning the hotel we're sitting in." Emma stared at her brother as his words sank in. "You own this hotel. I own the whole chain. Chen Hospitality Group." David's expression was gentle but serious. "I've been looking for you for years. The investigator's report that brought me here mentioned unusual activity at this location. I never imagined ... double quotes you became everything you dreamed of," Emma said, wonder and sadness mixing in her voice. "The success you left to find. Success doesn't mean anything without family to share it with." Sarah's phone buzzed again. "David, we have a problem. Marcus is in the lobby with what looks like a court order. He's demanding access to all guest records and threatening to involve the police." David's demeanor shifted instantly. "The successful businessman taking over? That's impossible. Guest privacy laws prevent ... double quotes. He's claiming Emma is mentally unstable and dangerous to herself. He has documentation." Sarah's voice was tight with worry. "Mr. Peterson is stalling, but he's going to have to comply if the paperwork is legitimate. Let me see it." David held out his hand for Sarah's phone. She showed him the photo she'd discreetly taken of Marcus's documents. David studied them, his frown deepening. "These are real, but they're based on fraudulent psychiatric evaluations. Look at the dates." Emma peered at the screen. "Those appointments. I never went to those appointments. Marcus said he was taking me to see Dr. Harrison for anxiety, but we never actually went. We'd drive around for an hour, then go home." "He was building a paper trail," David said grimly. probably planning this for months. If anyone questioned Emma's disappearance, he could claim she was mentally ill and needed protection from herself. Sarah paced the small living area. So what do we do? If he has legal documentation, double quotes, we prove it's fraudulent. But that takes time we don't have. David pulled out his phone. I'm calling my legal team, David. Wait, Emma caught his arm. If you get involved publicly, Marcus will know you're here. He'll know we've reconnected. He'll use that against both of us. I don't care what he does to me, I care. He's already destroyed 12 years of my life. I won't let him destroy yours too. David knelt beside the sofa, taking Emma's hands. Em, you're not destroying anything. You're my sister. Protecting you isn't a burden, it's a privilege. Sarah watched the exchange, her heart breaking for both siblings. There might be another way. David, as the hotel owner, don't you have final authority over guest privacy? Legally, yes. But if Marcus has a court order, what if the court order is for the wrong hotel? David and Emma looked at her blankly. Marcus is looking for Emma Collins or Emma Webb. But what if she was never registered under either name? What if she's been a guest of David Chen, staying in his private penthouse? Understanding dawned in David's eyes. Personal guest, not a hotel guest. Different privacy protections. Exactly. And if Emma is your personal guest, Marcus's court order for hotel records wouldn't apply. Emma shook her head. But the room key, the registration was never completed due to a system error, Sarah said. I can delete all traces of the original check-in, as far as the official record shows. Emma Chen has been staying as David's personal guest since before Marcus ever arrived. David stared at Sarah with something approaching awe. You'd risk your job for this. I've already risked my job. Besides, it's not fraud if it's true. Emma is your personal guest now, isn't she? Emma looked between them. You'd do this for me, both of you. Emma, David said softly, I'd do anything for you. I should have done this 12 years ago. Sarah was already moving toward her laptop. I need 10 minutes to clean up the digital trail. David, can you transfer Emma to your personal suite? The one that's not part of the hotel inventory, already on it. David stood, helping Emma to her feet. Come on, sis. Let me show you what home can look like when you're finally safe. As they gathered Emma's few belongings, Sarah's phone rang. Peterson's name appeared on the screen. Sarah, I need you downstairs immediately. Mr. Webb is demanding to speak with whoever registered his wife, and his lawyers are getting very aggressive. Sarah looked at David and Emma. Go, I'll handle this, Sarah, Emma said, catching her hand. Thank you for everything. Thank your brother. He's the one who's been looking for you all these years. As the siblings headed for the private elevator, Sarah steeled herself for the confrontation waiting downstairs. Marcus Webb was about to learn that some fortresses were stronger than legal documents, and some guardians couldn't be bought or intimidated. The lobby had transformed into a battlefield. Marcus stood near the front desk, surrounded by 3 men in expensive suits. Their briefcases open and documents spread across the marble counter. Hotel guests gave the group a wide berth. Sensing the tension crackling through the air, Sarah approached with measured steps, her heart hammering but her expression calm. 3 years of night shifts had taught her how to handle difficult situations, but this felt different. This was personal. Mr. Webb, she said pleasantly, I understand you have some questions about our guest registry. Marcus turned, his eyes narrowing as he recognized her. Miss Mitchell, how convenient. I was just explaining to your manager that I have legal documentation requiring you to produce information about my wife's stay at this hotel. Peterson stood behind the counter looking harried. Sarah, Mr. Webb has court orders that appear to be legitimate. We may have to comply. Sarah picked up the papers, scanning them carefully. David had been right. They looked official but were based on fraudulent medical records. These documents refer to Emma Webb and Emma Collins. Is that correct? Obviously, I'm sorry, but as I told you this morning, we have no guests registered under either of those names. Sarah set the papers down. Our system shows no record of anyone matching those identities. One of Marcus's lawyers, a sharp-faced woman with cold eyes, stepped forward. Mr. Webb has reason to believe his wife is using an alias. These court orders compel you to search all registrations for women matching her description who checked in during the relevant time period. I understand your concern, Sarah said, but even with a court order, we can only provide information about actual guests. We can't manufacture records that don't exist. Marcus's composure was starting to crack. I know she's here. Her phone's GPS, double quotes, phone GPS can be unreliable in urban areas, Sarah interrupted smoothly. Signal bounce, interference from other devices. It's not uncommon for location services to show someone as being in a hotel when they're actually in a nearby building. The second lawyer, an older man with gray hair, frowned at his paperwork. The court order should cover any woman matching the physical description, regardless of name, of course. Let me check our female guests for the time period. Sarah turned to her computer, pulling up a list she'd prepared. We've had 17 women check in since yesterday evening. 12 are registered with their husbands, 3 are here for a medical conference, and 2 are corporate travelers with extensive documentation. We'll need to verify each one, the female lawyer said. Absolutely. Though I should mention that 3 of the women are diplomats with immunity, and 5 others are staying in our executive suites as personal guests of the hotel ownership. Different privacy protections apply to those categories. Marcus stepped closer to the counter. Personal guests. Yes, sir. The Chen family owns this hotel chain. When Mr. Chen has personal visitors, they stay in his private suites rather than standard hotel rooms. Those accommodations fall under different legal protections. The gray-haired lawyer looked up sharply. David Chen, the Chen Hospitality Group owner. That's correct. Marcus's face had gone pale. He's here. I couldn't say, sir. Privacy policies apply to all our guests, including Mr. Chen's family and friends. Peterson was staring at Sarah with confusion, clearly not understanding her strategy. But she pressed on, knowing that every minute gave David more time to secure Emma's safety. Perhaps, Sarah continued, you could clarify the exact legal basis for searching private accommodations that aren't technically part of the hotel registry. The lawyers exchanged glances. The older one cleared his throat. If these are private residences rather than hotel rooms, the legal requirements become more complex. The female lawyer finished. We may need additional documentation. Marcus slammed his hand on the counter. This is ridiculous. My wife is here, and you're all helping her hide. The sharp sound echoed through the lobby, and several guests turned to stare. Security guards began moving closer, responding to the disturbance. Peterson stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. This is a luxury hotel, and we maintain certain standards of conduct. Standards of conduct. Marcus's voice rose higher. You're harboring a mentally unstable woman who needs medical attention. Mr. Webb, Sarah said quietly, if your wife were truly in immediate medical danger, wouldn't your first call be to emergency services rather than hotel management? The question hung in the air. Marcus's lawyers looked uncomfortable, clearly recognizing that their client's behavior wasn't helping their case. We should regroup. The female lawyer murmured to Marcus, perhaps approach this through different channels. But Marcus was beyond reason now. I know she's here, and I know you're all conspiring to keep her from me. But Emma belongs with her family. She belongs with me if she wanted to be with you, Sarah said. Her professional mask finally slipping, she wouldn't have run. The lobby went silent. Marcus stared at Sarah with naked fury, and for a moment she saw exactly what Emma had been living with. The rage, the sense of ownership, the complete inability to accept that someone might choose to leave him. You have no idea what you're interfering with, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more threatening than his shouting. No idea who you're dealing with. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Actually, Mr. Webb, I think I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and so do our security cameras, which have been recording this entire conversation. Security guards flanked Marcus and his lawyers. Peterson nodded to the head of security. Double quotes, gentlemen, I think it's time for you to leave. If you have further legal concerns, you can address them through proper channels with our corporate legal department. As Marcus was escorted toward the exit, he called back to Sarah, this isn't over. Emma will come home where she belongs. Sarah watched him go, then turned to Peterson. I need to make a phone call. Sarah, what the hell was all that about? Personal guests of David Chen. Sarah looked at her manager, this man who'd given her a chance when she desperately needed work, who'd trusted her judgment for 3 years. Mr. Peterson, how would you feel about meeting the owner of our hotel chain? Because I think it's time you knew who we've really been protecting. David's private penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor, and Emma had never seen anything like it. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while the interior felt more like a sophisticated home than a hotel space. But what struck her most wasn't the luxury. It was how the space felt, lived in, personal, safe. You actually stay here? She asked, running her fingers along the spines of books that lined one wall. When I'm in the city, I have places in Chicago and San Francisco too, but this feels most like home. David watched her explore as if memorizing every movement. Emma, can I ask you something? She tensed automatically, a response that made David's face fall. Sorry, I don't mean to interrogate you. It's just, what made you finally leave? After all these years, what changed? Emma sank into one of the leather chairs by the window. 3 nights ago, Marcus came home from a business dinner. He'd been drinking, which usually meant trouble, but this time was different. He started talking about children. David settled across from her, waiting patiently. He said it was time we started a family, that a baby would help me focus on what really mattered, help me stop having these episodes where I talked back or questioned his decisions. Emma's voice grew smaller. When I said I wasn't ready, that maybe we should wait. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing finger-shaped bruises on her upper arm. He said the decision wasn't mine to make, that he was done being patient with my selfishness. Emma met David's eyes. I realized that if I stayed, if I let him get me pregnant, I'd never be able to leave, and any child we had would grow up seeing him hurt me and thinking that was normal. David's hands were clenched so tightly his knuckles had gone white. So you ran. I waited until he left for work the next morning, packed one bag, and emptied our joint checking account. It wasn't much. Marcus controlled most of our money, but it was enough to disappear for a while. How did you choose this hotel? Emma smiled sadly. I didn't choose it specifically. I just drove until I was exhausted, then stopped at the first decent-looking place I saw. When I realized it was called Grand Harbor, it felt like a sign. Like maybe I'd found somewhere safe to dock. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Sarah's calling. Is she okay? Marcus didn't hurt her. Let me find out. David answered the call, putting it on speaker. Sarah, how bad was it? He's gone for now. But David, we have a bigger problem. He knows you're here, and his lawyers are asking questions about personal guests versus hotel guests. Did they buy the story? For now. But Marcus is beyond rational thinking. He's not going to give up. Sarah's voice was tense. There's something else. I told Peterson the truth. About you being here, about Emma being your sister. He wants to meet with you. David looked at Emma, who nodded. Bring him up. It's time to stop hiding. 20 minutes later, Sarah arrived with Peterson, whose eyes went wide as he took in the penthouse. Mr. Chen, Peterson said, clearly struggling to process the situation. I had no idea you were in the building. Call me David, and thank you for supporting Sarah downstairs. I know this situation has put you in a difficult position. May I ask, is this woman really your sister? Emma stepped forward. I'm Emma Chen. I was Emma Webb, but that marriage is over. Peterson studied her face. Then David's clearly seeing the resemblance. And Mr. Webb was, my abusive husband. Emma said simply. Sarah saved my life by helping me hide from him. Peterson sank into a chair. My God, Sarah, when you said someone needed our help, I thought you meant, double quotes. He shook his head. I'm sorry. I should have trusted your judgment completely. You did trust me, Sarah said. You backed me up when it mattered. David moved to stand beside his sister. Peterson, I need you to understand something. Emma's safety is my top priority. Whatever resources this hotel has, whatever influence I have in this city, I'll use it all to protect her, of course, sir. Whatever you need. What I need is for you to forget Emma was ever a registered guest. What I need is for your staff to understand that she's family, under my personal protection. And what I need is for you to help Sarah coordinate with hotel security to make sure Marcus Webb never gets near my sister again. Peterson nodded firmly. Consider it done. Emma looked between the three people who had, in the span of 24 hours, become her protective network. I don't know how to thank you all. You don't need to thank us, Sarah said. You just need to stay safe and let us help you figure out the next steps. David's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it, and his expression darkened. What is it? Emma asked. Marcus just posted something on social media. A missing person alert for his mentally ill wife who disappeared from psychiatric care. David showed them the post, which included Emma's photo and a plea for anyone with information to contact him immediately. He's making this public, Sarah said, which means we need to move faster than I'd planned. David pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyers. If Marcus wants to play this game publicly, then it's time he learned what real legal power looks like. Emma caught his arm. David, what if we're wrong? What if he really can have me declared incompetent? What if his documentation stands up in court? David took her hands, his voice gentle but absolutely certain. I promise you this. No one is ever going to control your life again. Not Marcus, not the courts, not anyone. You're free now, and I'm going to make sure you stay that way. For the first time in years. Emma believed that someone's promise to protect her might actually mean something. The war room that materialized in David's penthouse over the next 6 hours looked like something from a corporate thriller. Laptops covered every surface. Legal documents were spread across the dining table. And 3 of David's top attorneys had commandeered the living room. Emma sat curled in the window seat, watching her brother orchestrate her defense with the kind of focused intensity she remembered from their childhood. When David set his mind to something, obstacles became mere inconveniences to overcome. The psychiatric evaluations are definitely fraudulent, announced Rebecca Torres, David's lead attorney. Dr. Harrison confirms he never treated Emma Webb. The signatures on these documents don't match his actual signature on file with the medical board. What about the court orders? Sarah asked from her position near the coffee machine. Having appointed herself the team's caffeine coordinator, obtained under false pretenses, which makes them invalid. But Marcus's legal team was clever. They home shopped, finding a judge who doesn't typically handle mental health cases. Rebecca flipped through more papers. We can get them overturned, but it'll take time. David paced behind the sofa. How much time? 2, maybe 3 days if we expedite everything. Too long, Emma said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Marcus won't wait 3 days. He's already making this public, which means he's desperate. Desperate men do unpredictable things. As if summoned by her words, Peterson's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Chen, we have a situation in the lobby. David pressed the response button. What kind of situation? Marcus Webb is here with reporters. He's claiming you're holding his wife against her will, that she needs immediate medical attention. There are news vans outside. Emma closed her eyes. He's forcing a public confrontation, making it impossible for me to hide. Sarah moved to the window, peering down at the street. There are at least 4 news trucks down there. This is about to become a media circus. David's attorney pulled out her phone. I'm calling our public relations team. If this is going public, we need to control the narrative. No, Emma said, standing up. No PR teams, no spin doctors. Marcus has spent years controlling how people see me, making me invisible. If this is going public, then I want to tell my own story. David stopped pacing. Emma, are you sure? Once you do this, there's no going back. Your privacy will be gone. My privacy was already gone the moment he posted that missing person alert. At least this way, people will hear the truth instead of his version. Rebecca looked concerned. Emma, anything you say publicly could impact the legal case. We should be very careful about ... double quotes about what? About admitting I was abused. About telling people I ran from my husband because he was hurting me. Emma's voice grew stronger. I'm done being careful. I'm done protecting his reputation at the expense of my safety. Sarah nodded approvingly. What do you need us to do? I need to face the cameras, but not down there, not on his terms. Emma looked at David. Can we set up something here? In the penthouse? Absolutely. But you don't have to do this alone. Emma walked to her brother, taking his hands. I've been alone for 12 years. Having you here, having Sarah and all of you supporting me, it changes everything. For the first time, I feel strong enough to fight back. David squeezed her hands. Then we fight. Together within an hour they'd arranged for a select group of journalists to come to the penthouse. Emma would tell her story on her own terms, in a space where she felt safe, surrounded by people who believed her. As the cameras were being set up, Sarah pulled Emma aside. Are you really ready for this? Emma looked out at the city lights, thinking about all the other women out there who might be watching. Women trapped in situations like hers had been. I'm terrified, she admitted. But I'm also free, and I want other people to know that freedom is possible. The press conference was unlike anything the reporters had expected. Instead of a corporate boardroom or hotel conference space, they found themselves in David Chen's elegant penthouse living room, where Emma sat beside her brother on a comfortable sofa, looking nervous but determined. Thank you all for coming, David began. I know this is an unusual setting, but my sister wanted to address the false statements being made about her in a place where she feels safe. Emma leaned forward slightly, her hands clasped in her lap. My name is Emma Chen. Until 3 days ago, I was Emma Webb, married to attorney Marcus Webb. I want to tell you why I left, and why I can never go back. The room was silent except for the soft whir of cameras 12 years ago. I met Marcus when I was 18 and alone in the world. He seemed like everything I needed. Successful, confident, someone who could take care of me. I thought I was lucky. Emma's voice was steady, but Sarah could see her hands trembling slightly. The first time he hit me was 2 years into our marriage. He apologized, cried, promised it would never happen again. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because admitting the truth would have meant admitting I'd made a terrible mistake. One of the reporters, a woman with kind eyes, leaned forward slightly. How long did the abuse continue? 10 years. It wasn't always physical. Most of the time, it was psychological. He controlled every aspect of my life, where I went, who I spoke to, what I wore, what I ate. He convinced me that I was lucky anyone would want me, that without him I was nothing. Emma glanced at David, who nodded encouragingly. 3 days ago he told me it was time we had children. When I said I wasn't ready, he hurt me worse than he ever had before. That's when I realized that if I stayed, if I brought a child into that situation, I would be condemning an innocent person to grow up thinking violence was normal. Mrs. Webb, another reporter began, but Emma cut him off gently. I'm not Mrs. Webb anymore. I'm Emma Chen, and I'm reclaiming the name my parents gave me, Miss Chen. Your husband has provided documentation suggesting you suffer from mental illness that requires medical supervision. Emma's jaw tightened. Those documents are fraudulent. The doctor whose name appears on them will confirm he never treated me. Marcus created a paper trail to support his narrative that I'm unstable, because that's what abusers do. They make their victims look crazy so no one will believe them. David spoke up. Our legal team has already confirmed that the psychiatric evaluations are fake. The court orders obtained based on those evaluations are invalid. Mr. Chen, some people might wonder why you didn't intervene in your sister's situation sooner. Pain flashed across David's face. Because I didn't know. Emma and I lost touch 12 years ago, and I've been searching for her ever since. One of my greatest regrets is that I wasn't there when she needed me most. Emma reached for his hand. My brother couldn't have known because I became very good at hiding. That's what abuse victims do. We protect our abusers, sometimes even from our own families, because we're afraid and ashamed. What changed? What made you decide to leave now? I realized that staying meant giving up any hope of ever being free, and I met someone who reminded me that I deserved better. Emma looked at Sarah, who stood just outside the camera frame. Sometimes it takes just one person believing in you to help you remember who you really are. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Emma answered each one with growing confidence, her voice becoming stronger as she spoke. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, she seemed both exhausted and relieved. As the reporters packed up their equipment, one of them approached Emma privately. Miss Chen, I want you to know that what you did today was incredibly brave. My sister was in a similar situation a few years ago. Stories like yours save lives. After everyone left, Emma collapsed back onto the sofa. I can't believe I just did that. You were amazing, Sarah said, sitting beside her. You're going to help so many people. David's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Torres, Marcus just fired his legal team and hired someone new. This isn't over, but looking at his sister, seeing the strength she'd found to speak her truth publicly, David felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Absolute certainty that they were going to win. Whatever comes next, he told Emma, we face it together. Together, Emma agreed, and for the first time in a decade, she truly believed she wasn't alone. Marcus's counterattack came faster than anyone anticipated. By the next morning, every major news outlet was running a story about the hotel heiress who had abandoned her loving husband with the help of a billionaire brother's influence. Sarah read the headlines aloud from her laptop. Hotel magnate accused of harboring unstable sister, domestic dispute, or corporate conspiracy. Missing wife found, family drama at five-star hotel. They're painting you as the villain, Emma said to David, who was pacing the penthouse living room. They're making it sound like you kidnapped me. Let them, David replied. The truth is on our side. Rebecca Torres burst through the penthouse doors, her usually composed demeanor cracking. We have a problem. Marcus has hired Blackwood and Associates. David stopped pacing. Victoria Blackwood, the same. She's already filed emergency motions claiming Emma is being held against her will and demanding immediate access for a psychiatric evaluation. Sarah looked between them. Who's Victoria Blackwood? The most ruthless family attorney in the country, David explained. She specializes in high-profile custody and commitment cases. If Marcus hired her, he's playing for keeps. Emma sank into a chair. What does that mean for us? It means Blackwood will try to get a court order for an emergency psychiatric hold, Rebecca said. She argued that Emma is in immediate danger from herself and needs to be removed from this environment for evaluation. Can she do that? If she finds the right judge and presents the right evidence. Yes, the standard for emergency psychiatric holds is lower than normal commitment procedures. David's phone rang. Peterson's name appeared on the screen. Mr. Chen, Miss Blackwood is here with a team of people. They have what looks like court documents and they're demanding immediate access to Miss Chen. Hotel security is holding them in the lobby. But we'll be right down, David said. He looked at Emma. You don't have to face her. I can handle this. No, Emma stood up, smoothing her clothes. If she wants to evaluate my mental state, she can do it with you and Sarah beside me. I'm done hiding. The lobby had been transformed into a legal battlefield. Victoria Blackwood stood near the front desk, a tall woman with silver hair and cold blue eyes, surrounded by assistants and what appeared to be medical personnel. Mr. Chen, Blackwood said as they approached, I have a court order requiring immediate psychiatric evaluation of your sister. She needs to come with us now. David took the papers, scanning them quickly. This order is based on the same fraudulent medical records we've already proven false. That's for the courts to decide. Right now, Ms. Webb is required to submit to evaluation. Ms. Chen, Emma corrected firmly, and I'm happy to be evaluated, but by a doctor of my choosing, not one hired by my abusive ex-husband. Blackwood's expression didn't change. The court has appointed Dr. Reginald Hayes to conduct the evaluation. He's waiting in our vehicle. Convenient, Sarah muttered. Miss Chen, Blackwood continued, if you refuse to comply voluntarily, I'm authorized to have you taken into protective custody. Emma looked at the uniformed officers who had appeared behind Blackwood's team. And if I agreed to the evaluation but insist it happen here, with my family present. The order specifies a neutral location. Nothing about Marcus Webb is neutral, David said coldly. Blackwood turned her attention to him. Mr. Chen, I understand you want to protect your sister, but interfering with a court-ordered medical evaluation is contempt of court. Are you prepared to face those consequences? Before David could answer, Peterson approached with a worried expression. Excuse me, but we have media setting up outside. Word has gotten out about what's happening here. Through the lobby's glass doors, they could see news vans arriving, reporters and camera crews taking positions on the sidewalk. Blackwood frowned. This was supposed to be handled discreetly. Nothing about this situation has been discreet, Emma said. Marcus made sure of that when he went public yesterday. Sarah stepped forward. Ms. Blackwood, if you're so confident in your evaluation, why not conduct it here? In front of the cameras. Let the public see exactly what kind of mental health crisis you're claiming Emma is having. Blackwood's composure slipped slightly. That's not how medical evaluations work. It's exactly how they work when they're being used as weapons, Emma said. She looked directly at the attorney. You want to evaluate my mental state? Fine, but it happens here, in public, with witnesses. If I'm really as unstable as Marcus claims, it should be obvious to everyone. David stared at his sister with admiration. In the span of 3 days, she'd gone from a terrified victim to someone willing to challenge one of the most powerful attorneys in the country. Emma, he said quietly, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Emma turned back to Blackwood. What's it going to be? A public evaluation that proves I'm mentally competent, Or do you withdraw your motion and try to find some other way to drag me back to my abuser? Blackwood's jaw tightened. She knew she was trapped. A public evaluation that showed Emma to be articulate and rational would destroy Marcus's case, but withdrawing now would make it look like they had something to hide. Very well, Blackwood said finally. Dr. Hayes will conduct the evaluation here, but I want it on record that this circus atmosphere is not conducive to proper medical assessment. Noted, David said with a slight smile. Let's go find out just how crazy my sister really is. Dr. Reginald Hayes turned out to be exactly what Emma expected, a pompous man in his 60s who clearly believed he could intimidate her into appearing unstable. The evaluation took place in the hotel's conference room, with cameras rolling outside and David's legal team taking detailed notes. Mrs. Webb, Dr. Hayes began, consulting his clipboard. Miss Chen, Emma corrected politely. According to my records, you are legally married to Marcus Webb. According to my experience, I was trapped in an abusive marriage. There's a difference. Dr. Hayes made a note. Do you often experience delusions about your relationships? Emma smiled calmly. Do you often accept payment to support predetermined conclusions? Dr. Hayes. The doctor's pen stopped moving. Excuse me. I asked if you often get paid to reach specific diagnostic conclusions, because that's what this is, isn't it? Marcus hired you to declare me mentally incompetent, and you're trying to make my answers fit that narrative. I resent the implication that I would compromise my professional integrity. And I resent being treated like a diagnosis instead of a person. Emma leaned forward. Dr. Hayes, how many sessions did you have with me before today? This is our first meeting. But I've reviewed extensive documentation, fraudulent documentation, created by my abuser to support his attempt to regain control over me. Emma's voice remained steady and rational. Tell me, in your professional opinion, does someone experiencing a psychotic break typically speak this coherently about their situation? Dr. Hayes glanced at Victoria Blackwood, who was watching from the corner with growing frustration. Mental illness can present in many ways, he said vaguely. That's true. It can also be fabricated when someone wants to discredit a victim who's finally found the courage to speak out. Emma pulled out her phone and showed him something on the screen. Dr. Hayes, according to the State Medical Board's website, you've been sanctioned twice for accepting payment in exchange for specific diagnoses in custody cases. Should we discuss that pattern? The room went silent. Rebecca Torres was trying not to smile as she took notes. Where did you get that information? Dr. Hayes demanded. Public records. Amazing what you can find when you actually do research instead of just accepting what an abuser tells you. Emma set her phone down. Now would you like to continue this evaluation, or shall we discuss how much Marcus is paying you to declare me incompetent? Blackwood stood up abruptly. This evaluation is clearly being conducted in a hostile environment. Dr. Hayes, I think we have enough information actually. Dr. Hayes said slowly. I'd like to continue. He looked at Emma with what might have been respect. Ms. Chen, can you tell me why you left your husband? For the next 30 minutes, Emma recounted her story with the same clarity and detail she'd shown during the press conference. She described the escalating abuse, the isolation, the financial control, and finally the threat to force her into pregnancy. Dr. Hayes asked follow-up questions, but they were genuine inquiries rather than attempts to trap her. As the evaluation progressed, it became obvious to everyone in the room that Emma was not only mentally competent but articulate, intelligent, and entirely rational. Ms. Chen, Dr. Hayes said finally, in your opinion, what would happen if you returned to your husband? The abuse would escalate. He's been publicly humiliated by my leaving and speaking out. Men like Marcus don't forgive that kind of perceived betrayal. Emma met his eyes directly. If I went back, I don't think I would survive it. Dr. Hayes set down his clipboard and looked directly at Blackwood. Ms. Blackwood, I cannot in good conscience recommend psychiatric commitment for this woman. She shows no signs of mental illness, delusion, or instability. Her decision to leave an abusive marriage was entirely rational. Blackwood's face went white. Dr. Hayes, perhaps you need more time to complete your evaluation. I've completed it. Ms. Chen is mentally competent and fully capable of making her own decisions about her life and safety. He stood up. Furthermore, I'm going to recommend that the court investigate how fraudulent psychiatric records were created in her name. As Dr. Hayes packed up his materials, he paused beside Emma. Miss Chen, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for what you've endured, and I'm impressed by your strength in speaking out. After the evaluation team left, Emma slumped in her chair, emotionally exhausted but victorious. That was incredible, Sarah said. You completely dismantled their case. David hugged his sister. I'm so proud of you. Dad would have been proud too. Emma wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Do you think this is really over? Rebecca Torres was already on her phone with the courthouse. She hung up and turned to them with a grim expression. The good news is that Marcus's petition for psychiatric commitment has been denied based on Dr. Hayes' evaluation. The bad news is that Blackwood has filed new motions. She's now claiming that David is using his wealth and influence to manipulate the legal system. What does that mean? Emma asked. It means Marcus isn't giving up, but neither are we. David's expression hardened. If he wants to play dirty, Let's show him what dirty really looks like. Emma looked at her brother with concern. David, I don't want you to become like him. I won't, but I will use every legal resource at my disposal to make sure he never hurts you again. There's a difference between justice and revenge. We're going to get you justice. The final confrontation came not in a courtroom, but in the most public venue imaginable, the lobby of the Grand Harbor Hotel during the evening news hour, when every major network was broadcasting live coverage of what the media had dubbed the Hotel Heiress case. Marcus arrived with a new legal team. Having apparently fired Victoria Blackwood after the disastrous psychiatric evaluation, he looked haggard, his usual polished appearance showing cracks that suggested he was feeling the pressure of public scrutiny. Emma stood beside David and Sarah, surrounded by their legal team and hotel security. She wore a simple blue dress that Sarah had brought her, and her hair was pulled back in a style that made her look both professional and approachable. Marcus called out as soon as he saw her. Thank God you're safe. These people have been filling your head with lies, but I'm here to take you home now. I am home, Emma replied calmly. This is where I choose to be. Marcus's facade of concern began to slip. You're confused, darling. You've been through trauma, and these people are taking advantage of your vulnerable state. The only person who ever took advantage of my vulnerable state was you. Emma, please. We can work through this. Marriage takes effort from both parties. I know I made mistakes, but mistakes. Emma's voice rose slightly, but she maintained her composure. Marcus, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to hit me. You chose to control every aspect of my life. You chose to isolate me from everyone who might help me. The cameras captured every word, every gesture. Marcus seemed to suddenly remember they were being filmed and tried to soften his approach. I was trying to protect you. You were so fragile after your parents died, after your brother abandoned you. I wanted to shield you from more pain. You became my pain, Emma said, and David didn't abandon me. We lost touch, but he's been looking for me for years. The difference is that when he found me, he asked what I needed. You never asked. You just decided what was best for me and enforced it with fear. Marcus's lawyer, a nervous-looking man who clearly wished he was anywhere else, stepped forward. Mr. Webb would like to resolve this matter privately. Outside the media circus there's nothing to resolve, David said. Emma has made her choice clear. Mr. Chen, surely as a businessman you understand the value of negotiation. Perhaps we could discuss financial arrangements. Double quotes. Are you suggesting I bought my sister? David's voice was dangerously quiet. Not at all. I'm simply saying that emotional decisions made under stress often look different after time for reflection. Emma stepped forward. I've had 12 years to reflect. Every bruise gave me time to think. Every time he told me I was worthless, I had time to consider whether he was right. Every night, I lay awake afraid of what mood he'd be in the next day gave me plenty of reflection. She turned to address the cameras directly. I want everyone watching to understand something. I didn't leave my marriage lightly. I endured years of abuse because I believed the lies he told me about myself. I believed I deserved it. I believed no one else would ever want me. Her voice grew stronger. But I finally realized that no one deserves to live in fear. No one deserves to have their spirit broken bit by bit until they forget who they used to be. And children should never have to grow up thinking that love means violence. Marcus tried to interrupt, but Emma continued. The night I left, Marcus told me it was time we had children. When I said I wasn't ready, he hurt me worse than he ever had. That's when I knew that if I stayed, if I brought a child into that house, I would be condemning an innocent person to witness what I had endured. She looked directly at Marcus. I left to save myself but also to save the children we might have had. They deserved better than growing up in a home where violence was normal. Marcus's mask finally fell away completely. You ungrateful ... He stepped toward Emma, but hotel security immediately moved to block him. Don't, David warned, his voice carrying absolute authority. Marcus turned his fury on David. This is all your fault. She was fine until you interfered. She was my wife, and she was happy. Happy? Sarah spoke up for the first time. She checked into this hotel terrified, covered in bruises, jumping at every sound. That's not what happy looks like. You know nothing about our marriage. I know what abuse looks like, Sarah replied steadily. And I know what it looks like when someone finally feels safe enough to ask for help. Marcus's lawyer tugged at his sleeve. Mr. Webb, perhaps we should ... No, Marcus shook him off. I'm not leaving without my wife. She's not your wife anymore, Emma said quietly. I filed for divorce this morning. It's over, Marcus. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at Emma as if he couldn't comprehend what she'd said. You can't divorce me. I won't let you. You don't get to let me do anything anymore. That's what freedom means. Marcus looked around the lobby, seeming to finally realize how many cameras were recording his breakdown. How many witnesses were seeing him stripped of his careful facade. This isn't over, he said. But his voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is, David said. Security will escort you out now. And Marcus, if you come near my sister again, you'll discover that I have resources you can't even imagine. As Marcus was led away, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in years. complete, overwhelming relief. She was free, surrounded by people who cared about her, with a brother who had spent years searching for her and a friend who had risked everything to protect her. For the first time in 12 years, Emma Chen was exactly where she belonged. 6 months after the lobby confrontation that ended her marriage, Emma stood in the bright conference room of the Chen Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors, watching as volunteers assembled care packages for women leaving abusive relationships. Each package contained basic necessities, toiletries, clothes, a prepaid phone, and something Emma had insisted on including: a handwritten note that simply said, "You are braver than you know." "The shelter in Phoenix just called," Sarah announced, entering with a clipboard full of requests. "They need funding for security upgrades. Apparently, one of their residents has an ex-husband with connections to private investigators." Emma nodded, making a note. Approved. Security should never be negotiable. Sarah had left her position at the hotel 3 months earlier to become the foundation's director of operations. Her experience in hospitality had translated perfectly to creating safe spaces for vulnerable people, and her natural instinct for protecting others had found its ideal outlet. "How many women have we helped place in secure housing this month?" Emma asked. 40. "But Emma, we're getting requests faster than we can fulfill them. The foundation is successful beyond anything we originally projected." Emma looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there were women still trapped, still believing the lies their abusers told them about their worth, their options, their chances of survival. "Then we expand again." David said the board approved additional funding, right? "More than approved. He's donating the entire downtown property he just acquired. Says we can convert it into transitional housing." Emma smiled. Her brother had thrown himself into the foundation's work with the same intensity he'd once reserved for building his business empire. But now his drive was motivated by love rather than guilt, by the desire to help rather than the need to succeed. "Ms. Chen." A young woman appeared in the doorway, holding a manila folder. "These are the application forms for the scholarship program. We have over 200 applicants for the first semester." The scholarship program had been Emma's idea, funding for women who wanted to return to school after leaving abusive relationships. Education meant independence, and independence meant the freedom to never be trapped again. 200, Emma repeated, awed by the number. "Sarah, do you remember when we thought helping one person was ambitious? I remember when you thought you were the only person this had ever happened to." Emma's phone buzzed with a text from David. "Dinner tonight. I have news about the Phoenix Center." She typed back, "Can't wait to hear it." "Sarah's cooking, right?" "Obviously. My culinary skills are still limited to hotel room service." The three of them had developed a tradition of weekly dinners in David's penthouse, a routine that felt like the family gatherings Emma had missed for so many years. They would talk about the foundation's work, share stories from the women they'd helped, and plan new initiatives. But more than that, they talked about everything else. David's attempts at dating. "She seemed nice until she asked if I came with the hotel." Sarah's mother's recovery. "She wants to volunteer at the foundation now." And Emma's own journey toward rebuilding her identity. "Emma," Sarah said gently, "Dr. Martinez called. She wanted to confirm your appointment for Thursday." Emma had been in therapy for 4 months now, working through years of trauma with a psychologist who specialized in domestic abuse survivors. The sessions were difficult, but healing, helping her separate Marcus's voice from her own thoughts. "I'll be there. She's been helping me work on something important." "What's that?" Emma picked up one of the handwritten notes destined for a care package, reading her own words. "You are braver than you know. I'm learning to believe that about myself too." 1 year after her escape from Marcus, Emma stood before a packed auditorium at the University of Chicago, delivering the keynote address for their women's leadership conference. The girl who had once made herself small enough to avoid notice now commanded attention from 500 people who hung on her every word. "When I left my abusive marriage 13 months ago," Emma began, "I thought I was running away from something. I didn't realize I was actually running toward the person I was always meant to be." In the audience, David and Sarah sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Behind them sat dozens of women from the foundation, many of whom had their own stories of survival and transformation. "Abuse doesn't just damage your body," Emma continued. "It rewrites your internal narrative. It replaces your voice with your abuser's voice. It convinces you that their version of who you are is the truth." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I spent 10 years believing I was weak, worthless, lucky to be tolerated. It took leaving everything behind to remember that I was actually strong, valuable, and worthy of love." After the speech, Emma was approached by a young woman who reminded her of herself at 18, uncertain, eager to please, carrying invisible wounds. "Ms. Chen, I wanted to thank you. Your story helped me realize that what my boyfriend does isn't normal. I'm leaving next week." Emma took the girl's hands. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "My sister's in Portland. She's been begging me to visit." "Good. Trust your sister. Trust yourself. And remember that leaving is just the first step. Healing takes time, but it's worth it." Emma handed her a business card for the foundation. "If you need anything, call us. No one should have to rebuild their life alone." Later that evening, back in the penthouse, Emma found David on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Penny, for your thoughts. Just thinking about Dad," David said. "He would have been so proud of what you're doing." "What we're doing," Emma corrected. "I couldn't have built any of this without you and Sarah." "You could have. You're stronger than you realize, Em. You always were." Emma joined him at the railing. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Sarah hadn't decided to help me that night?" "Every day. And every day I'm grateful that she saw something worth protecting." Sarah emerged from the kitchen, carrying 3 glasses of wine. "Are you two getting sentimental without me?" "Always," Emma laughed, accepting her glass. "We were just talking about how everything changed because you decided to trust your instincts." "I didn't trust my instincts," Sarah said. "I trusted you. There was something in your eyes that first night. Something that reminded me of my sister when she needed help. I just did what anyone should do when they see someone in trouble." "Not everyone would have done what you did," David said. "You risked your job, your safety, everything. Some things are worth the risk." Sarah raised her glass. "To taking chances on people. To family," David added. "The kind you're born with and the kind you choose." "To freedom," Emma finished, "and the courage to claim it." They clinked glasses as the city sparkled below them. Emma thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, terrified and broken, hiding in a hotel room. That woman would never have believed she could stand before hundreds of people and tell her story. She would never have imagined building something meaningful from her pain. "I have an announcement," Emma said suddenly. "I've decided to go back to school." David and Sarah stared at her in surprise. "What kind of school?" Sarah asked. "Law school. I want to specialize in family law, specifically domestic violence cases. I want to help other women navigate the legal system when they're trying to escape." David grinned. "Emma Chen, attorney at law. It has a nice ring to it. I figured if I'm going to spend my life fighting abusers, I might as well have the legal training to do it effectively." Sarah hugged her tightly. "You're going to be amazing." Emma looked at her brother and her best friend, these 2 people who had helped her remember who she was beneath all the lies Marcus had told her. She thought about the foundation they'd built together, the women they'd helped, the lives they'd changed a year ago. She'd been Emma Webb, a shadow of a person defined entirely by her relationship to an abusive man. Tonight, she was Emma Chen, survivor, advocate, sister, friend. She was exactly who she was meant to be. "You know what the best part is?" Emma said. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm excited about the future." 2 years after leaving Marcus, Emma stood in the courtroom where she'd just argued her first case as a licensed attorney. Across the room, a woman named Lisa Martinez clutched her 2 young children, finally free from the man who had terrorized their family for 8 years. "We did it," Lisa whispered, tears streaming down her face. "The restraining order is permanent, and he has to pay child support through the court. I can't believe it's finally over." Emma smiled, remembering her own disbelief when her divorce had been finalized. "It's just the beginning, actually. The hard part is over, but the good part is just starting." Sarah appeared at Emma's shoulder, having driven down from Chicago to watch Emma's first court victory. "How does it feel to officially be a lawyer?" "Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time," Emma laughed. "But mostly right. This feels like what I'm supposed to be doing." Emma had completed law school in an accelerated program, driven by the urgency of knowing how many women needed legal advocates who truly understood their experiences. The Chen Foundation had funded a full scholarship program for abuse survivors pursuing legal careers, and Emma had been its first recipient. "Miss Chen," Lisa said, "I don't know how to thank you. When I first called the foundation hotline, I was ready to give up. I thought there was no way I could afford a lawyer. No way I could win against someone with his connections." "You won because you were brave enough to fight," Emma replied. "I just helped you navigate the system." David had been waiting in the hallway, having flown in from San Francisco where he was opening the foundation's newest shelter. He hugged Emma tightly as she emerged from the courtroom. "How many is that now?" he asked. 17 cases since I passed the bar. 17 families free from their abusers." Emma's voice carried quiet satisfaction. "And this was just in the past 6 months." The 3 of them walked out of the courthouse together, past the marble columns and formal atmosphere into the bright afternoon sunlight. Emma always felt a moment of profound relief when she left courtrooms, remembering too clearly what it felt like to face legal proceedings as a victim rather than an advocate. "Lunch," David suggested. "I know a place, you know a place, everywhere," Sarah teased. "It's one of the perks of owning hotels in every major city." As they settled into a quiet restaurant booth, Emma's phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Martinez. "Her therapist saw the news coverage of your case. So proud of how far you've come." Emma had continued therapy throughout law school, working through not just her own trauma but the secondary trauma that came from helping other abuse survivors. It was necessary work, ensuring she could be strong for her clients without losing herself in their pain. "Earth 2, Emma," Sarah said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You're thinking very loudly over there, just processing. 2 years ago, I was hiding in a hotel room, convinced I was worthless. Today I helped a mother of 2 escape from someone who made her feel exactly the way Marcus made me feel." "Circle of healing," David said. Dad used to say that our worst experiences could become our greatest strengths if we chose to use them to help others. I wish he could have met you," Emma said to Sarah. "He would have loved how you see the best in people, even when they can't see it themselves." "He would have been proud of both of you," Sarah replied, "building something beautiful from something so painful." Emma looked at her phone as another message came in, this one from a law school classmate. "Saw the news about your case. Coffee next week to discuss the non-profit legal clinic idea." The legal clinic was Emma's next project, a free legal service specifically for domestic abuse survivors. Staffed by attorneys who had lived through similar experiences, she'd learned that there was something uniquely powerful about being represented by someone who truly understood the fear, the shame, and the complex emotions that came with leaving an abusive relationship. "I have an idea for the foundation's next expansion," Emma said. David groaned dramatically. "Every time you say that, it costs me another few $1,000,000. "Only a few million," Emma grinned. "I must be losing my touch." Sarah laughed. "Remember when we thought providing one woman with a safe room was ambitious? Now we have shelters in 12 cities, a legal clinic, a scholarship program, and a training institute for hospitality workers to recognize signs of abuse." David marveled. "Sometimes I can't believe how far we've come." Emma reached across the table to take both their hands. "I can't believe how far you've let me come. You both saved my life in different ways. We all saved each other," Sarah said simply as they sat in the warm afternoon sunshine. Emma felt the deep contentment that came from knowing she was exactly where she belonged. She had her family back, work that mattered, and most importantly, she had herself back. The scared woman who had stumbled into the Grand Harbor Hotel that night seemed like a different person now, but Emma carried her memory carefully. That woman's pain had been real, her fear justified, her desperation understandable. She deserved to be remembered with compassion, not shame. "Ready for the next case?" David asked. Emma smiled, thinking about the woman who would call the foundation's hotline tonight, the one who would walk into her office next week, the ones who were still finding the courage to leave, always ready. 5 years after the night that changed everything, Emma stood in the ballroom of the Grand Harbor Hotel, surrounded by hundreds of people celebrating the Chen Foundation's 5th anniversary. The same lobby where she'd once hidden in terror now hosted an elegant gala showcasing the lives that had been transformed by the work that grew from her. "Escape. When my sister walked through those doors 5 years ago," David said from the podium, "she was running from a nightmare. Tonight, she's the architect of dreams for thousands of women who thought freedom was impossible." Emma smiled from her table, watching the slideshow of success stories, women who had left abusive relationships, completed education programs, started new careers, and built safe homes for their children. Each face represented a life reclaimed, a future rewritten. Sarah, now the foundation's executive director, who had coordinated every detail of the evening with the same meticulous care she'd once brought to managing hotel guests. The ballroom was filled with survivors, supporters, advocates, and lawmakers who had helped pass stronger domestic violence legislation. Emma Chen, the master of ceremonies, announced, founder and legal director of the Chen Foundation, "Please join us for the evening's keynote address." As Emma walked to the podium, she spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Lisa Martinez, the woman from her first legal case, now working as a victim's advocate herself. Dr. Hayes, the psychiatrist who had refused to falsify her evaluation and later became a foundation board member. Even Peterson, the hotel manager who had backed Sarah's instincts that crucial night 5 years ago. Emma began. "I believed I was alone in the world. I believed the lies I'd been told about my worth, my options, my future. I believed that safety was something other people deserved, but not me." She paused, looking out at the audience of survivors and supporters. "I was wrong about all of it, but I was especially wrong about being alone. What I've learned is that the moment you decide to choose freedom over fear, you discover that you're surrounded by people who will fight for your right to be safe, to be valued, to be heard." In the front row, David and Sarah sat with Emma's law school classmates, her therapy group members, and women from the very first shelter the foundation had opened. Her chosen family had grown far beyond what she could have imagined. The Chen Foundation has helped over 10,000 women and children escape abusive situations. We've provided legal representation, safe housing, education, funding, and job training. But numbers don't tell the real story. Emma clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of a woman in a graduation cap and gown, holding a young daughter. The real story is Maria, who left her abuser with nothing but her 2-year-old daughter and is now a registered nurse. The real story is Jennifer, who thought she was too old to start over at 55 and now runs her own accounting firm. The real story is 15-year-old Amanda, whose mother found the courage to leave before the cycle of violence could touch another generation. The audience erupted in applause. Emma waited for quiet, then continued. "But I want to tell you about another story, about a hotel receptionist named Sarah who saw a frightened woman and chose to help, even though it meant risking everything she'd worked for. About a brother named David who never stopped looking for his sister. Even when it seemed hopeless, she looked directly at them. About people who proved that family isn't just about blood, It's about showing up. It's about believing in someone's worth even when they can't see it themselves. It's about refusing to let someone face their darkness alone. Emma's voice grew stronger. Every woman we help finds her own Sarah, her own David, someone who says, "You matter. You deserve better. You're not alone." That's how healing happens. That's how cycles break. That's how the world changes, one act of courage at a time. As the applause died down, Emma pulled out a small card from her pocket. "I keep this with me everywhere I go. It's the first note I ever wrote for one of our care packages. You are braver than you know tonight. I want to add something to that message." She looked out at the room full of survivors and supporters, advocates and allies. "You are braver than you know. You are stronger than you imagine. You are worthy of love, safety, and respect. And you are never, ever alone." The standing ovation lasted several minutes. As Emma left the podium, she was surrounded by women wanting to share their stories, to thank her, to volunteer with the foundation. Later that evening, after the last guest had left, Emma found herself alone in the hotel lobby with David and Sarah. They sat in the same seating area where Marcus had once tried to intimidate them, but the space felt entirely different now. It was filled with warmth, with possibility, with the quiet satisfaction of work well done. 5 years, Sarah mused. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like a lifetime ago. Both Emma agreed. "I can still remember exactly how scared I was that first night, but I can barely remember what it felt like to live without hope." David pulled out his phone and showed them something on the screen. "I got this text during your speech. It's from the Seattle shelter. They just received a donation from an anonymous survivor who said your story gave her the courage to leave. She's starting a foundation of her own." Emma smiled, thinking about ripples spreading across still water, each circle touching others, extending far beyond where the original stone had fallen. "That's how it works," she said. "One person's courage gives someone else permission to be brave. One person's healing makes space for another person's freedom." As they prepared to leave, Emma looked around the lobby one more time. This place would always be where her new life began, where she'd learned that asking for help wasn't weakness but wisdom, where she'd discovered that her story didn't have to end with someone else's cruelty. "Ready to go home?" David asked. Emma thought about her apartment across town, filled with law books and foundation files and pictures of all the women whose lives had intersected with hers. She thought about the cases waiting on her desk, the women who would call the hotline tomorrow, the future that stretched ahead of them all. "Ready?" she said, and meant it completely. Some stories end with escape, others begin there. Emma Chen's story, the real one, the one that mattered, had started the night she chose freedom and discovered she was brave enough to claim it. Everything since then had been about learning to live in that freedom, and helping others find their own. The frightened woman who had checked into the Grand Harbor Hotel 5 years ago had become someone she could never have imagined, whole, strong, purposeful, surrounded by love she'd never thought she deserved. But perhaps most importantly, she'd become herself again, Emma Chen, exactly as she was meant to be.